My name's Kayla, and this is the Redhead Reels. And I don't have much to say because I just created this the other day, but I'm just gonna dive into today's topic, which is The Gift. So The Gift came out back in 2015. It is rated R, written and directed by Joel Edgerton. I will pull up the IMDb curated summary so you can get an idea. A young married couple's lives are thrown into a harrowing tailspin when an acquaintance from the husband's past brings mysterious gifts and a horrifying secret to light after more than 20 years. So yeah, this is considered a drama thriller. For the most part, it starts off like kind of slow, but I think it's interesting. I actually saw this for the first time back when it came out. Me and my mom went to the theaters because we're obsessed with Jason Bateman, who plays like the main character. His name's Simon. And I just remember after we left, I like still didn't know what happened really. Like, it's just the way that everything unfolds is like kind of weird. So the movie's rated R. Some of the things I'm going to be talking about are probably rated R. In terms of content warnings, I'm going to be talking about like sexual assault and troubles getting pregnant. So if those are triggers for you, I just warned you. And there are definitely going to be spoilers. So if you're the kind of person that wants to be surprised, then I'll talk to you after. So, like I said, Jason Bateman is the main character. He plays Simon. His wife is Robin, played by Rebecca Hall. And the main antagonist is Gordon, who goes by Gordo, played by Joel Edgerton, who also wrote and directed the movie. So that's something I thought was interesting. So the movie opens up with Simon and Robin. We find out that they're moving to California from Chicago. So Simon's from California. This is like his hometown that they decide to come back to. And they open up on this house that is like straight out of some sort of karate like dojo, like mansion. Like there's Asian feels. The whole thing is glass, and there's like 14 bedrooms for this just one couple. And that like already kind of sets you up for who these people are. And what was I gonna say? Whatever. But yeah, so they buy this expensive ass house, and then they go to the furniture store to buy new furniture for this expensive ass house that they don't need. But while they're there, there's like multiple scenes of this guy who we don't know yet just lurking in the background. And we meet him finally. He goes up to Simon and is like, "Oh my God, we went to high school together. What's up?" And Simon's like, "I literally don't know who you are, but all right, cool, whatever." So he introduces himself. His name's Gordon Mosley, but he goes by Gordo, which is like strike number one. I don't agree with that, but it's his name, whatever. So they get Gordo's phone number and say that they're going to call and hang out or whatever. And real people say that kind of shit all the time, and it doesn't happen. So, and especially he didn't even know who this guy was to begin with. So like, all right, whatever, they take his phone number and they say they're going to hang out. And usually in real life, that's the end of it. And the next day, they get back to their house and there's a wine bottle left on the, like, right by their front door. And in Gordo's signature red stationery, he writes, like, welcome or whatever, and you realize it's from him. And one of the main issues with that is they never gave him their address. So, like, even if they were going to call him and, like, maybe ask him to hang out, which realistically they weren't going to, but he just shows up at their house. So then we start to get some more backstory on Robin and Simon in general, and we find out that Robin was pregnant when they were in Chicago, and her words are, it wasn't like a happy ending or something like that. So we're left to assume that she had a miscarriage. And then, so she's hanging out with the neighbor who becomes her best friend. And then she's back at the house, and Gordo shows up again during the day, and he's like, oh, where's Simon? Like, can he come out to play? And I don't know if he, like, doesn't realize that Simon has a job that he goes to every single day. But Robin's like, well, no, because he's, like, at his job. You wouldn't understand. So then Gordo's awkwardly like, oh my God, this is such a nice house. That's a really cool house. I love your house. And then Robin's like, I mean, do you want to come in? Because I don't know what the hell else this is. So then she gives him a whole tour, and they go up to where the bedrooms are, and there's a box of baby stuff left over from the first time. And Gordo just invites himself in and starts going through this box and, like, pulls out a mobile and everything, and pulls out one of those little monkey toys that have the symbols on their hands. And Robin mentions that they got it as, like, a gift or something, but Simon's, like, deathly afraid of monkeys, so they have to get rid of it. But then they, like, continue throughout the house or whatever, and she's cooking dinner at the time, so she tells Gordo, like, oh, you should stay for dinner. And then he does. So then Simon comes home, and they're all hanging out together, and they, like, Gordo is just so awkward. Like, he did not learn how to socialize properly as a child. He cannot hold a conversation, and it's just very cringy. Like, I'm glad to not know him in real life, because I wouldn't know how to react. Like, the entire dinner, he's just throwing compliments at these people, and he's talking about when they were, like, back in high school, and how Simon was class president and his campaign was Simon Says. And I'm like, honestly, that kind of shows you what kind of person Simon is, but we'll get there. And he's like, well, I always knew Simon would make something of himself, and he obviously did, and he has a beautiful wife and a beautiful house. And I'm like, this is so gross. Like, can you please stop? And even Simon's like, Robin, like, he's had enough to drink. And he even, like, brings up religion. So that's kind of what I mean. Like, he doesn't get social cues. And this whole, like, intro, like, exposition type part of the movie, they let you know for sure that Gordo's the antagonist. And, like, they don't even try to ease you into it. Like, they tell you from the beginning when they were at the furniture store and he's just lurking in the background of every shot that he's weird. So then we go to Simon's work, and we find out that he works for a company that does, like, security systems, which I personally find to be quite ironic, because he professionally sells security systems to huge corporations, but he has, like, this stalker just walking in and out of his house every single day. Like, you protect all these billion-dollar companies and you can't protect your family, but who am I? So they're at this work party, and we kind of get introduced to the idea that Robin has like some other issues because Simon like doesn't want her to go back to work, and he's like, well, no, I just want you to be happy and like make sure that you're staying healthy, because then other things start when you're not being, or when you're too stressed. That's when the other things come up. So they're laying it on pretty thick, but don't get into specifics. And then when they get back, they realize that Gordo bought them fish for this koi pond that goes up their walkway into this fancy ass house, because who the hell needs a koi pond? But now they have like 20 fish that Gordo just bought for them, along with fish food. And so Simon already is like we need to get rid of this guy. Like, he's being weird, he's being creepy, and Robin consistently just defends him. And she is always saying that Simon's like being too hard on him, and that Gordo means well, and all these things. And I can't necessarily blame her, because all of the things that he has done have been pretty inconsequential. And I feel like it gives you more so like a weird feeling just because you know it's a creepy movie. And I mean, they also never gave him their address, so that's like the first problem. But other than that, like, he bought them fish, he bought them a bottle of wine, which is like a regular housewarming gift. We can all agree that he is socially inadequate, but that's not like his fault. So up to this point, I'm kind of like, whatever, it's not that big of a deal. So then the next day, Robin's home alone once again, because she is working from home at this point. So she's home by herself all day, every single day. And Gordo comes back over, and every single time he asks to hang out with Simon, and every single time Robin has to remind him, like, he has a job. Like, he's not here. He wasn't here yesterday. He's not here today. And he won't be here tomorrow. But then it gets even like more awkward, because he just like stands there. Like, he's not having a conversation with her. They're just like looking at each other. And she was in the middle of working, so she's like, I don't really know what to do with this guy, but I mean, if you're just going to stand here, like, do you want to come in or something? So he does. He helps them out with like stuff around the house, and he like sets up their TV and stuff, and he goes to put stuff back into the kitchen, and he sees on the fridge that Simon had crossed out his name, Gordo, on this little whiteboard, and wrote weirdo, because in high school his name was Gordo the Weirdo, which really isn't that clever, but kids are assholes, so that was that. But Gordo sees that and just like stares at it for a while, and Robin notices and is like, oh shit. And he's like, no, it's fine, and then just like rushes out. And like, honestly, like, in your heart, like, it just sinks. Like, you see his face and he is so sad, and I'm like, well, that sucks, you know, because he technically hasn't hurt anybody yet. But then they're having this party, well, it's a dinner, with Simon's work people and their neighbors, who they're now best friends with, and just constantly talking shit about Gordon. And then they like also kind of start talking shit on Robin, because at this point she's still actively defending him and saying that nothing that he has done is wrong, and she thinks that everybody's giving him a bad rep. But they're like in front of her saying like, no, you're too naive and you're too nice and that's why he's doing these things and you're letting him get away with it. And I'm like, can you like be a little bit nicer to your wife, especially in front of people? But that's that. So then Simon mentions that Gordo had invited Robin and Simon to a dinner party at his house with another couple. And that's problematic because in real life, if I see that somebody's calling me like a weirdo and saying all this stuff behind my back, then that's that. Like, I'm not talking to you ever again. But like the next day, he's like, oh, you know what? It's fine. Let's just actually have a dinner party at my house instead. So that's like your first kind of, well, maybe he's not a regular person. And then Simon and Robin go to the dinner party, which blows my mind because Simon is already like quite abrasive and has actively told Robin throughout this entire like first however long that he's not interested in Gordo whatsoever. But then they still go to this dinner party. So they pull up and there's a gate, and this gate pulls back and it's like old school English mansion. Like, think in the last song when they're driving up to Liam Hemsworth's house, that's where Gordo lives. And so they're like, well, what does he do? Because at this point they still don't know anything about him. Like, he mentioned that he went into the military after high school, but that's it. They don't know anything about his life. So this is honestly like the first bit of information, and it's kind of a shock. So they go into this house and it's just them and Gordo. And they're like, well, where's the other couple? And Gordo tells them that, like, oh my God, literally just a couple minutes ago, they canceled. And I'm like, seriously, who didn't see that coming? So originally it was going to be weird enough that it was supposed to be two married couples and Gordo alone. But now this other fake couple canceled, so now he's just third wheeling once again, but now it's in his fancy house. So Gordo goes into like the kitchen for 5 seconds to get drinks, and he answers a phone call, and he comes back out into the living room and goes, oh my God, like, it's a work call, it's an emergency, I have to go, like, I'll be back in a couple minutes, and then just walks out. So then he leaves, and like Simon and Robin are just sitting there staring at each other like, what the fuck just happened? Because same. And I'm like, you saw these people write that they think that you're a weirdo, and now you're just, first of all, still even trying to hang out with them and inviting them to a dinner party, but now you're just leaving them alone in your house. So, but yeah, he does. He drives away. So he leaves, and Simon just starts outright talking shit. Like, he's such a weirdo. Like, would we ever do this to somebody? Like, how does he think that this is acceptable? And I'm like, same. But Robin's like, well, no, if it's an emergency, like, I get it. And she, like, to her dying breath, is trying to give Gordo the benefit of the doubt. Like, she cannot say anything mean about this fellow if she tried. So Simon's like, he's like, Gordo's obviously in love with you. He wants to be your husband. He wants me to leave and like wants to live in our fancy house with you. And he like keeps egging Robin on, and they finally say, she accidentally says that Gordo is disgusting, and Simon's like, yeah, you're right. Like, I don't know if this is just me being paranoid and a side effect of all the crime shows I watch, but especially when he knows you already don't like him and he just leaves you alone, are you not the slightest bit concerned that, like, maybe you're being recorded? Like, is that just me? I've been binging Jane the Virgin for the past, like, couple of weeks, and there's a lot of, like, people wearing wires and, like, tapping rooms and stuff like that. So maybe it's just me, but that's automatically where my head goes. So then they start snooping around his house and they find a child's bedroom upstairs, and he tells them that he's not married, but they see, like, women's clothes in his closet, and that's like, he's never mentioned a child, he's never mentioned a partner, whatever. So then while they're snooping, he pulls back up, so they race downstairs to get back into the living room before he walks in. And he comes in, he's like, oh, sorry, and Simon's like, well, I mean, what do you do? Like, if you say that was for work, and this is, like, a really expensive house, and we also don't know anything about you, like, can you answer any of these questions? And Robin's like, you're being rude. And honestly, no, he isn't. Like, he's been in your house so many times. He has pride. He has asked you about your childbearing difficulties, and you don't even know what his job is. So Gordo lays this on them, that his ex-wife just took their 2 kids and left, and this mansion-esque is all hers. It's all her family, and it's all their money, and he basically is, like, at her whim, that whenever she tells him to do something, he just has to go do it. So Robin, like, starts to feel bad, and something clicks in Simon's mind that he's like, fuck this, I'm done trying. And so he goes, Robin, go wait outside for me. Like, we're gonna have a talk, and then I'm gonna come out, and then we're gonna leave. So Robin goes off, like, towards the front door, but she just, like, she stands there in the little foyer eavesdropping, like any rational person I think would do. But she doesn't do a good job, because Simon starts to say, like, hey, you know, you've got some heavy shit going on, you should really focus on that, focus on your life, and, like, maybe don't talk to us again ever. But then he looks to the side and he sees her standing there listening, and he's like, Robin, seriously, like, can you just go outside? So she finally goes outside, and Simon, like, comes out and meets with her and is like, we're leaving. So they get in the car and they go to drive out, but the gate won't open. And at this point, Simon is, like, literally ready to throw hands. He is so pissed, and he gets out of the car to go walk back up to this house to, like, beat this guy up. Like, he's so pissed off, and Gordo's just standing there staring at them as he watches them get pissed off that the gate's not opening. And I don't know if this is my own personal issue or if it's just the fact that it's Jason Bateman, but this, like, protective side of him is A-okay in my book. Like, I, for lack of a better word, love it. Like, if Jason Bateman had my best interest at heart for even, like, 2 seconds, I would die happy. Like, I'd probably start crying. So the fact that he's being, like, so protective of her, like, makes me swoon, until you see the rest of his personality and you're like, you really had to go fuck that up for yourself, didn't you? But for now, like, I'm all for it. They go back to the house, and the next day Simon's off at work once again, and Robin comes home from her daily jog, and all the fish in the koi pond are dead. And so she calls Simon, he rushes home. Oh, and then we also find out that their sweet baby dog, Mr. Bojangles, is missing. So Simon's like ticked off. He rushes over back to this house and is like banging on the door, trying to get Gordo down there to answer to him. And like, I'm still in love with him at this point. So he's really like, Gordon, like, get the hell down here. Some woman answers the door and is like, can I help you? And we're assuming at this point, obviously, that it's Gordo's ex-wife, because who else would it be? And she's like, my husband's name's Mike. I don't know who Gordon is. Could you please leave? And obviously Simon's like, well, I was here yesterday. Like, I was physically inside of this house yesterday, so I know I'm at the right place. And we find out that this house belongs to Gordo's boss, because Gordo drives like fancy cars around. Like, I guess he's Mike's driver, and Mike and his wife are on vacation, so Gordo just like borrows their house to make himself look better, to host his fake dinner party. So Simon goes back to the house and they decide to call the police because their dog is missing, and what I can only describe as a parody character shows up in the likes of a cop. Like, he's pretending to be a detective, walks up off the street with the most ridiculous accent I've ever heard attempted. And I guess we're supposed to be taking him seriously when he goes, oh, so, the dog's tag says Mr. Bojangles. And certain things like that really take away for me from the fact that it's supposed to be a drama thriller, because I literally laughed out loud. But yeah, they essentially say like, we can't go over there because there's no evidence, so we would literally just have to ask him, did you steal this dog? And if that's what we decide to do, he's gonna know that you sent us thinking that he stole your dog. So they just decide to not do anything about it. And then once again, in his signature stationery, Gordo sends them a letter apologizing and basically saying that he thinks, or that like he would be embarrassed for them to see where he actually lives in real life, and that's the only reason that he lied. And things are like already kind of deteriorating for Robin and Simon after all of this. Like, we see that Robin's popping pills, and after they, well, so the end of the letter, Gordo says that he was going to let bygones be bygones from however many years ago, and Robin's trying to get answers, and Simon's like, oh, I don't know what he means. Like, that's so crazy. And then that's just the end of that. So then the next day, she is home alone once again, and she hears noises like around the house. And oh, and I did actually forget to mention that before they get this letter, Mr. Bojangles comes home, and so Simon's like, he's literally just fucking with us. Like, I know it's him. But then they get the apology letter, and Simon's like, I don't care at this point. So back to, she is home alone once again, and she hears noises, and she's like walking around throughout the house, and when she's up in their bedroom, she passes out, and they play some dark ass music in the background, and then 5 seconds later she pops up awake in the bed, and then that's just it. And then she walks downstairs, and Simon is sitting at the table waiting for her to come down, as if that's like his daughter who's in trouble for coming home past curfew. and is like waiting for her to come sit down so they can have this talk. And he whips out the pills that she's been popping in the middle of the night and giving her this fresh load of shit for it. So they get into like this whole fight, and she's like, can you please like just go apologize to him? She's like, obviously I'm not feeling well, and I think that it would really just help me out like inside my head if we could just make this right. Like, he sent the letter, we need to close it out on our end, and then that's it. And Simon's like, oh no, like this conversation's over, and then that's it. And then after that, they like start this whole montage of their life going back to normal and them being happy. And around Christmas time, we find out that Robin's pregnant again. And then in the freaking blink of an eye, 8.5 months pass, and she turns around, nursery's all set up, and she's like 2 days away from popping. So then her and her BFF, Lucy, the neighbor, are out shopping, and Lucy's like, oh hey, not to freak you out, but there's somebody outside staring at you. And she looks out, and it's Gordo, and she's like, holy shit, Lucy, that's the guy from before, like the creepy guy who used to stalk us every single day. So she goes out and tries to stop him, but he just runs away. So then we also find out that Simon is up for this promotion. He's been up for the promotion since like before she got pregnant, but now it's coming to fruition, and it's just between him and this other guy named Danny, and that's it. And the boss, like, it's his job they're fighting for, is putting in like all his best words for Simon. So he's like, oh no dude, like, you're cool. So things, like, for the most part seem to be like getting better, but she had like that run-in with Gordo, and then we have the baby shower. So they're at the baby shower, and Robin goes for a little walk with Simon's sister, and she's like, oh well, you went to this school too, like what's the deal with Gordo? And Simon's sister lays this on us, that Gordo got like sent away because he was found in the back of a car being molested by like this older guy. And so Robin's like, well, Simon would know about that then, right? Like, why would he hide that from me? And his sister's like, oh, like Simon and his BFF Greg saved Gordo's life. Like, they found Gordo in the car while it was happening and like put a stop to it. And it was this huge story all throughout the community. And so Robin's like, okay, like, why did he not tell me? But then the sister's like, I was 12 when this happened. Like, I really couldn't tell you if I tried. So now Robin starts doing some digging, and she's snooping around Simon's office, and he has a locked drawer. So she finds the keys, which was really easy. And I feel like if I were hiding as much shit as Simon is, I'd probably make the keys a little more difficult to find, especially when he seems to be really happy keeping his wife out of his shit. But yeah, she does. She finds the keys and she unlocks this drawer, and he has these envelopes with people's names written on them. So there's an envelope in there that she pulls out, and it has Danny McDonald's name, who's the other guy that's up for this promotion. But that means nothing to her, so she just puts it back. And then she pulls out an envelope that has Gordon's name, and they start reading through it, and they see that like he was arrested back in whatever year for breaking into somebody's house and the attempted abduction of a minor, which is never addressed in any other part of this movie. So I'm a little confused as to why it was introduced, but that's that. So he was arrested for that, but it didn't have any information about what happened while they were in high school. So she decides to hit up Simon's old BFF, Greg, and she looks him up online and sees that he is like a partner at this private chiropractor office, and like makes an appointment the next day to go see this guy, which I personally take issue with, because in real life you can't get a public doctor's office to make you an appointment that fast. So how are you getting this private chiropractor to see you like the next day? But I digress. So she goes there, she has an appointment, and Greg calls her back. And this is awkward for me personally, because she sits there, she like takes off her jacket, and he's ready to do his job. And I'm like, girlfriend, you are not there for a chiropractor. And she's just like, maybe she's too awkward to say something, and like too awkward to be like, oh, I actually just wanted you to talk about this horrific story from your past. But so she's just like sitting there for a couple seconds, and he's about to start rubbing up on her, and she's like, oh wait, you know my husband. So then finally they get into this whole thing, and he's like, for real, I don't want to talk about this. And she's like, well, Simon doesn't either, so what else am I supposed to do? So she keeps asking all these questions about the incident, and the only thing that she knows is that Gordo was seen being molested in the back of a car, and Simon and Greg stopped it. So she asks the question that is eating at my brain, which is, was Simon the person in the car with Gordo? And Greg's like, no, you obviously don't know anything, because the whole story was a lie. Like literally Simon just made it up because he wanted people to think that Gordo was gay. And so Robin's like, well, why would he do something that fucked up? And Greg's basically like, because he's a bully. Like, what else was he supposed to do? Like, he said terrible things about pretty much everybody. So she goes home and confronts Simon with her newfound knowledge and tells him, like, you have to go make things right. And then they get into this whole story, they get into this whole argument because she's like, you have to go apologize to him. And he's like, that's not how the world works, honey. Like, people don't just go around apologizing. And while she was talking to Greg, he mentioned that there was a whole thing with Gordo and his dad. And we find out that Gordo's dad was so pissed that he thought Gordo was gay that he tries to murder him by like setting him on fire, or like setting the house on fire. There was fire involved. He was like trying to burn this kid down for being gay. And she's like, do you not even a little bit feel bad for that? Like, this kid got beat up and tortured because of something you just decided would be funny to talk about. And he's like, well, my dad was mean to me too, and I still made something of my life. And I'm like, you already got peeks into what a douche Simon could be, but this is really like, he is showing every narcissistic part of his personality. And I have to tell you, it's not a good look for Jason Bateman. But that's that. And then he says he's like, oh, is that like the sick fantasy that you have, that all these girls who treated you like shit back in high school are gonna line up and apologize to you? And then Robin smacks him, and I'm like, yes, girl, because fuck him. And she's like, you go apologize to him. And that's the end of this conversation. So, and then Simon's like, well, I don't even know where to find him. And she's like, yeah, you do. And throws the file at him of this whole background check, as if like he really seems to think that she's just like an idiot, that she just will go on with her entire life and he can do whatever he wants, and she's just like this doting housewife. So then cut to Simon's sitting in a bar watching Gordo host Quizzo. So after Quizzo's over, Simon goes to meet up with him in like this back alley parking lot. And it honestly like makes me laugh to think about, because he goes back there and tries to apologize for what seems like the first time in his entire life. Like, he has never heard an apology. He has never given an apology. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, because he basically says, oh, well, like, my wife wants me to come here and say I'm sorry, so are we good? And Gordo's like, your wife told you to come do this? But then Simon's pride gets all bruised and is like, whoa, no, I'm doing it because I want to. Like, I only do what I want to do, because he's some macho ass guy. And he's genuinely so annoyed that Gordo doesn't accept his fake apology. So then he throws his papers all over the place, and then he knocks Gordo on the ground and gives him like a gravel facial, rubbing his face all over the concrete and saying like, honestly, I tried to be nice to you, which no, you didn't. But, and then he basically says like, don't come near us ever again. You suck. And the whole time, Gordo just keeps talking about the past. He's like, the past isn't done with you yet, and it's too late for your apology, and it's too late for us to make things right. So he says everything, like, it's too late for you, it's too late for us, whatever. And Simon's like, I couldn't really care less, because I didn't want to talk to you from the beginning anyway. So he goes home and he tells Robin that Gordo was so appreciative and he's so sorry for everything he did, and he starts getting like teary-eyed, because like he's trying to make her think that he realizes he's a jackhole. And it's just so cringy, because we literally watched him beat this guy up. But then after that, it's like the next day or something, they're having another little dinner meetup with his work friends and their neighbors. And we find out that Simon got the promotion at work. And while they're all hanging out in this living room, they hear a bunch of noises and like bangs, like something from outside. And then finally, somebody throws something through their window, because I don't know if I mentioned before, but like their entire house is made of glass. Like all of the walls and stuff, it's all just glass. So somebody throws something through their glass wall, so it shatters, and Simon grabs a baseball bat and runs outside to try and beat this guy up. And you're set up to assume that it's Gordo. However, it's Danny freaking McDonald, and he's throwing out all this shade that Simon set him up. And he's like, Simon, you're the reason I didn't get this promotion. You cheated me out of the promotion. And then they fired me. You cost me my job. And it's because you made all this shit up. And he's like, you went around saying that you knew people from my old job, but it's all fake. Like, you fabricated everything. And somebody already called the cops. So the cops are on the way. And Danny McDonald is like, well, I can't get arrested for this. Like, you already cost me this job. And now if I get arrested, I'm never going to get a job. And Simon knows that he fucked up and he's the asshole in this situation. So he lets Danny go. And his boss is at this dinner party. So he just like looks over at his boss and it's super awkward. And then Robin goes into labor. So then she's in the hospital and she gives birth, whatever, they have a baby boy. So Simon goes down to the nursery and like the baby is such a cute little boy. And he goes back to her hospital room. No, he doesn't. So he gets a call from his boss saying like, everybody at the office knows that you made all that stuff up about Danny, so you're fired, actually. And Simon is so narcissistic that he's like, no, don't worry about it. Like, I'll come in, we'll talk about it, everything's gonna be fine. And his boss is like, no, like, seriously, this is it, goodbye. So then he goes back to Robin's hospital room and basically says like, oh, I'm just gonna like run home, take a shower, and just like tries to deuce out. And she's like, oh, by the way, I actually don't want to go back to that house with you. So she doesn't outright say that she's like leaving him, but she's for sure not going back to that house. And she may or may not like go to a different house with him. Anyway, his life at this point is like falling apart, is the moral of this part of the story. But he can't accept that. So he's like, oh, okay, well, I'll just go home and then we'll talk later. He just thinks if he like postpones everything, that everything will be fine. And that they'll eventually like go back to his side. I don't know. So this is like the climax of the whole story. He gets back to the house and there's a box and there's a card in Gordo's signature red stationery envelope. So he opens it and in the box there's like one of those little like baby carrier seat type deals. I don't know. But inside of the little baby seat there's 3 individually wrapped gifts. So the first is a key to the house. So he opens it and he goes and checks it on their front door. So it's literally their house key. The second is a CD. So when he plays it, it's recording from when he left them at his fake house. And I told you how they were like talking all this shit and how he like Gordo wants to love Robin and all these things. It's the recording of everything they said that day. And then the third gift is a DVD. And when he starts playing the footage, initially it's just different clips of Gordo filming her through like the glass walls. And then he's like in the house following her around and he holds up like her Gatorade bottle that she would drink after every jog and kind of like insinuates that he drugged her. And back that day when she passed out, it's because he drugged her. So it's footage of them on that day where she's just like laying on the floor. And then he turns the camera on himself and he's wearing like a monkey Halloween mask because Simon's afraid of monkeys, which I find to be so personally satisfying. Like, that's probably my favorite part of the whole movie, is he's literally just wearing like a monkey mask. He looks ridiculous, but the idea is like it's supposed to be like creepy and scary or whatever, I don't know. But then he like gets on her, and it like, there's footage of him like straddling her and like touching her arms, and he moves her into the bed, and then that's it. And then the video cuts out. And so Simon freaks out. He rushes back to the hospital because he wants to go talk to whoever, I don't know. But what he didn't know was, simultaneously, while he is watching this DVD and like getting all these presents, Gordo is at the hospital with Robin. And this is when she sees that he's all fucked up, because he's got like a black eye, he's got one of those little white bandages that they use for stitches, and he's got an arm brace. So he's just like kind of being creepy, and it's like, oh, congrats, and is it a boy? Okay, cool. But it's just weird. So Simon rushes back to the hospital, and he sees Gordo trying to leave and like goes to chase him out. And then Gordo calls him on his cell phone, and they get into this whole thing about how, like, I told you the past wasn't done with you, and it'd be really easy for me to tell you right now whether or not I did it, but you'll just have to go up there and look at the baby, and it's all in the eyes, and just like trying to fuck with him and say like, you ruined my life because you made this story that was completely false, but now I'm just not going to tell you whether or not it's true. So like, the kid may or may not be Gordo's, and then that's it. Like, literally, that's just the end of the movie, and you never find out. So like, I remember when I saw this for the first time, leaving the theaters and kind of not knowing what happened. And like, I remember the sense of just like having questions, and you kind of have no idea. And like, and that's all it is, like, because they just don't tell you. So if you're the kind of person who needs answers, this is gonna frustrate you. Like, this is going to pick at your entire soul. Because I'm like, I don't necessarily need answers, but I really appreciate them. So it's troublesome for me. And like, I kind of personally, like, my general taste is overall like fucked up. So I just, like, they could have pushed it. Like, they could have done so much more. Like, in my ideal adaptation, like, Simon would have been the guy in the car. Like, I don't know, because it's just all question marks at the end. But it is like a good movie. If this is like the kind of movie that you're interested in, if you like this style, then I do think that you'll like it, because it is kind of like a psycho thriller is how Netflix categorizes it. So I do think that it's a good movie, and I would recommend it if that's the kind of movie you like. But it's not like perfect to my personal standards. But in all honesty, nothing is. So what are you gonna do? So that's like pretty much all I have for The Gift. I would definitely say it's still worth watching. I've seen it like 4 times at this point because, I mean, 1, Jason Bateman, 2, Joel Edgerton. You know, why not? But it is like an interesting plot. It can be slow at times, but I think it's still worth a watch. So I guess that's it for me for this episode. Kind of throughout whatever lifespan this podcast has, I'm going to try and hit like all different genres. I like all different genres. I like the creepy stuff. I like animated. I like musicals, kids, cartoons, whatever. So I'm definitely going to hit a lot of different areas. And if you have any requests or any suggestions, something that you want me to talk about, I'm on Instagram and Twitter at the Redhead Reels. So you can let me know there. And if you liked this episode, you can subscribe, like, share this with other people. You can do whatever you want to do. So that's it for me. And I will see y'all next time. Bye.